previewing tonight's speech by President Trump. There are plans for disruptions, plans for a little bit of chaos in the Capitol tonight.
There are some Democrats that are saying they won't show up at all, but then there's other groups within the Democrat Party that are looking at multiple ways to make a disruption. Some are planning walkouts at specific times, kind of forecasting the topics that he may hit, that they will just get up and walk out of the chamber. There are others that have been talking about bringing props. Some would just be messages, signs like Rashida Tlaib had when Bibi Netanyahu spoke before the joint session of Congress. But then there are other things like empty egg cartons or even things like noisemakers, kazoos, hand clappers, and other things to cause disruption while the president is speaking before this joint session of Congress.
Maybe they won't boycott. Maybe they're going to bring, what'd you say, egg cartons, red cards like a soccer game,
right?
Where they're going to say, you get 2 yellows, you get a red, then you get thrown out of the game.
Which some people may say is anti-American in and of
just
itself.
Soccer?
Trying to do a soccer reference in a joint session of Congress. I know some people on the control room side may agree with that statement.
I love soccer, but I don't think that it's a good idea. It just comes off kind of lame. There's always the jokes that like Democrats can't meme, and I feel like that's sort of that. Like the trolling is really below average.
They think it's very clever to do a red card, like they're the referee. But yet,
how San Francisco? I mean, that's what it feels like. It just feels like old Pelosi. It feels like old San Francisco being like, we're going to show get a red card, or even the egg cartons, or even just sort of the silliness that goes on within this whole moment. And of course, we don't know what President Trump's speech will be. We assume we have a good idea. I'm sure he'll hit the top topics, talk about inflation, talk about the wars, the endless wars that are happening.
You remember back when Obamacare debate was going on, President Obama was talking about Obamacare during his State of the Union speech. And Joe Wilson from South Carolina shouted, "You lie," from the gallery. And everyone in the D.C. class were so outraged that someone made a single sound, shouted one thing during
the times have changed.
President's State of the Union address. Now they're openly talking about, almost with glee, about the red cards, the cartons. Some are saying that they could be planning to be holding up pocket-sized constitutions because they think President Trump is shredding the Constitution. Never mind what President Biden did over the last 4 years.
Well, speaking of shredding, remember that just a few years ago when President Trump made his State of the Union speech, after he gave all of these great tributes to incredible Americans and people, Nancy Pelosi shredded it behind him.
Right.
Making these big statements. Now, look, I'm not necessarily opposed to this from a personal point of view. I kind of like the UK Parliament. I like the screaming, fighting side of this. When I watched the Zelensky thing, it was kind of like, all right, now we're talking here. Because you're seeing this in front of the public. By the way, all of these things, I've said this before, all of these things happen behind closed doors. If you've ever been in any of the meetings with world leaders, guess what? It's pretty tense. Guess what? There's a lot of screaming going on. I hate to break it to you. It's not all, tea time. It is pretty hardcore. You just happen to see it in front of the cameras. And this is something that other countries have seen in front of the cameras for decades. They've seen a bit of the showmanship. They've seen a bit of the pomp and circumstance. And I like that. I like a little bit of it. Now, do I want us to be in chaos at all times? No. But do I want to see my president being strong? Sure. Do I want it to feel like it's a scripted setup? No. I would like it to feel real. And I do feel in those moments it felt pretty real. So much so that you're seeing kind of the back off from Zelensky. I think he knows he took the bait a little bit.
And when you look at the past 4 years when it was just completely dull and there was no excitement or action coming from our leadership, when you see this kind of razzle-dazzle, it really starts to bring back the excitement about, wow, our country is strong. When he talks about making America great again, we didn't feel that way as a nation because of the division, but also because of the leadership. But now you start to see strength again, and that's contrary to what everyone on the left in Congress and in the media class would have you believe. That is genuinely what people voted for. They wanted strength. They didn't want our leaders to, out of fear, back down to smaller nations, and so we end up continually giving them our taxpayer dollars. It's really easy for a politician to sign a check over to a foreign nation, because at the end of the day, it's the American people's money. It's not their money. And so the stewardship of the government is something that has lacked for a long time. When you grow the bureaucracy, when you see how out of control it's become. And I think that's going to be a large theme of tonight as well. Bringing in the DOGE cuts, the things of that nature. I think we're going to see these things that the American people voted for that they've done in just over a month that the people at home watching will be excited about. But then Democrats in the crowd are going to be holding up pocket constitutions or making noise. That's not going to play well for them.
And the media will slam it. The media will say that it's horrible, that it's everything that we were fearing that it was going to be from President Trump. The talking points already. You'll have Van Jones crying. You'll have those things happen because that's what happens after any speech from President Trump, even though he was elected in pretty much a landslide, a 2025 landslide, 2024 landslide. What that would be is a few percentage points at this point. But look, I hope President Trump plays to the whole crowd too. I hope he won over a lot of people with people like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK. I hope he talks about that. Hope he shows that he's willing to work and willing to work with people who have different points of view. He's shown it. The proof is already there. But now, reach out to the American people. Don't care about who's sitting there in that room because they're not going to cheer for you. They're not going to change their mind. It's sort of the old nomenclature of that. It's like, go for the audience that cares. Don't go for the audience that is going to boo you regardless, that is going to get up and walk out. You're not going to win them over. All they're doing is playing politics for their own constituents. All they're doing is trying to make it look like, they want to be the show. They want to be the ones who make the noise. They want to be the ones that show up on television. Again, I would put Zelensky in the very similar situation where I've said this, and I know people like it or don't like it. I don't care what you think about his politics. I don't care what you think about the war. I mean, I do care, but it doesn't matter. The guy sells a Ukrainian first agenda pretty darn well. He's able to go to the White House, make a stink 3 years into it, get all of Hollywood back on his side, get everyone talking about Ukraine when everyone pretty much had forgotten. And all of a sudden, you get fully all of Europe to join back together and the UK to say, we're going to send boots on the ground if we need to. That is a master salesman. And look, I don't put that past him. So we don't treat people like they're dumb or like they're stupid and they're going to do this. All of this is well thought out. Now, the difference is you have a wild card. That wild card is President Trump. You don't know what he's going to do because any other politician would not do what he's doing. He would not slap the tariffs on. He would not cut the aid. There's usually a lot of big talking and not a lot of doing. But we're seeing a very different world right now. Whether you agree with it or not, we can at least all agree that things are changing.